feel a bit like that sometimes. Some of you too. And in 11 years ago, I launched the Paris Software Crafters community, and now it's been a lot of people going through this community, many generations of people, of professionals going through this community to become better professionals. So yeah, it's also a lot of people who came there to improve their lives. And the word craft has become so important that it's now even part of the best conferences, like where we are right now. So big shout for the organizers, by the way. Wow! Yay! NewCrafts. So what it is craft? Usually I don't talk about it, I talk about the content. I talk about how to do things in practice. But what's craft after all? And do we still need to care about craft right now in 2033? That's the big question. Let's explore that together. So first, who I am. I'm the co-founder of Arolla, a French consultancy, and a lot of my colleagues are there. And so we are 100 of passionate people about craft and everything, and all the DDs, as you know. We are all big fans of DDs, and we help our clients do that as well. And it's not just DDs, it's also architecture right now, because, yeah, craft has changed and evolved, and you spend a lot of your time now doing architecture, all of you. And also, just last thing to brag, I'm the author and co-author of 2 books, so buy them, and we are very happy to sign them. All right, coming back to the topic of craft, what it is. And to tell the story, I'd like to come back, flashback, back in time, like in 2000, 2009, 1999, in what I call the dark ages. It was like that in my mind. My souvenir is like that. It was a lot of vendor complexity everywhere. EJBs, distributed COM objects. Remember that, some of you? Yeah? Yes. It was nice, right? No, it wasn't. Complexity driven by vendors, but the most important thing was that we found complexity cool. I'm better than you because I understand all these things. It was cool to do complicated stuff. And we also had complex plannings with phases and like 3 months, 6 months, years. Analysis, paralysis, and all these things. I remember I spent 6 months designing 5 classes in C++ for them to be perfect. Yeah, it was something you could do at this time. A lot of analysis, detailed analysis, specs, but at the time as well, code was not important because it's a dirty job. And fortunately, soon we would be able to replace it with code generation, thanks to this fabulous tools from MDA and UML. You would write UML, that's clean, and you would get the dirty bit, the code, generated. Yeah, we all believed that at the time. Remember, some of you? Yeah. That's crazy, right? So yeah, seriously, we were thinking that at the time. And your random junior developer, conversely, consequently, would come and say, hey, I want to become project manager after 2 years to escape the dirty bit, to do something clean again. Yeah, seriously? So meanwhile, somewhere in the US, in Oregon, and especially in Portland is a city known for being weird. And actually, they're proud of it. Keep Portland weird. And in Portland, Oregon, it's weird like that, the hippies. And so in Portland, in a company called Textronics, there was a guy called Ward Cunningham. You may have heard about him. And his colleague, Ken Beck, and we're going to listen to Ken Beck very soon. And together, they were working together in the same company, and they asked themselves, what if we did things differently, especially now that we have Smalltalk? And then they came up with patterns. Yes, they were the first to introduce patterns. Wiki. Wiki? These are the initials of Ward Cunningham. Yeah, that's just his name. Extreme programming, which became TDD later on, and the CRC card, and so many other things. So they were not the only one, to be honest. There were many other practitioners building their own way to do things more agile, but it wasn't a word until they met at the Snowbird ski resort and decided, and they came up with the famous Agile Manifesto that you all know. Some female were invited as well, like Rebecca, but unfortunately they could not come, so it ended up with a panel of 17 male authors. And they came up with this manifesto. So what's interesting in this manifesto, it's something that says we want to do this better. It's more important to do this on the left than the things on the right. And the things on the right were basically abuses at the time. We were doing too much of this, so now it's time to counterbalance and do more of that. So, long story short, basically this saved my life and maybe saved yours as well. But then, fast forward 8 years, Agile has become the new norm, especially with Scrum. And now you have to do it. And oops. And increasingly, we heard things like, no, you're a Scrum Master. You used to be a project manager, but now you're a Scrum Master. And other things like this, you know the jokes, the attention back to the processes and tools. And when you were there at the beginning and say, no, this is not what Agile was supposed to be. And it was supposed to be the people and interaction more than the tools. And so just in eight years, you can see already that, oops, we've done it again. And so that's a moment that Sandro Mancuso, who launched the community, the crafter communities in London, calls the Agile hangover. Writing a lot of code effectively, very quickly, but then you end up with a pile of crap. And that's no good. Because we still have the mindset that code doesn't matter at the time. And that was the problem. And so in this panel, there was this person, I'm sorry to advertise this guy now, but he was part of it anyway. Robert Martin was not happy with that, and he came up with another manifesto on top of the Agile manifesto, saying that, hey, the Agile manifesto was nice, but you need that on top to be effective. So is well-crafted software matters on top of the Agile manifesto. So overall, basically, we need to learn to do better engineering practices. And again, it was a reaction to nonsense at the time. You see, when the industry will abuse of something, somebody comes in and say, hey, you need to do differently. So the first definition of craft at this point is that craft was a reaction to something that itself was also a reaction to something before, and probably again, and which was probably a reaction to something before, but I wasn't even born, so I don't know the older story. So it's all about the reaction at some point in time, and that's the important thing. If you ask the question, do we still need craft? Actually, I don't care about the answer. Craft was useful at this point in time to counterbalance behaviors that we had wrong, basically, as an industry. So now, what happened next? We made the world more inclusive by removing the man in the world and making it shorter as well. Actually, nobody really knew how to write correctly the FTS, they are craftsmen. So actually, everybody is happy now. There were stupid jokes like craftsmanship, or something like that, like stupid stuff. And we had mottos and leitmotifs like raising the bar. We all need to get better. Working code is not enough. Yeah, we know how to make the code work, everybody. But making it better for us. Build the right thing, build it right, these kind of slogans that we use. But the full idea is not doing this. Click, 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 click. Oh, it works. Oh, I stopped there. I don't know why it works, but it works. Oh, so I'm done. Yeah. Programming by coincidence. So now, if you ask me to define craft, I would insist first on the benefits that we want. Craft is desirable benefits that we're after, like the benefits that you know from DORA, time to market, frequency of defects. And so it's not just defensive, it's also offensive, like time to market is innovation, you can do things. Basically, if you can say yes to change requests from the business more, you are doing a better job. That would be the thing. So, but anyway, when I talk with people about crafts, most of the time, we focus on the toolbox. And many people see craft as a toolbox of practices. And at the time, in 2009, when the craft came in, we selected the best practices available at the time. But don't forget to revisit this set of toolbox over time. And at the time, the practices were basically there. DevOps was before, but it was not that popular. It became popular approximately at the same time. And all these practices, they have one thing in common. They have in common that they all looked like pure heresy when they get discovered. You see, a heresy like that, like, oh my God, they're so stupid. Why people would do like that? Like, in 2000, to test something, you had to have this thing. And all of a sudden, Mr. Beck comes and says, hey, you should start with a test of nothing. Yeah. Oh my God, that's completely stupid. And yet, you all know how to do red-green refactor, because the test actually is a little bit of specification that you stream. You don't download the specification, you stream it chunks by chunk. You code just enough, and you refactor all the time, and which is basically the recipe for frugality of everything. And by the way, if you are trying to do TDD or promoting TDD or pretending to do TDD, TDD is not just test after or test first, you need the refactor to be really doing TDD. Little reminder. So that's hard to do on your own, so you'd better do it with pair programming, which brings a lot of other advantages. And again, pair programming, it's kind of, oh my God, when you first talk to that about your manager. We should do 2 people doing the same thing as one. Oh, it makes no sense. And these kind of jokes as well. I don't believe that 2 people can produce as many lines of code as one, right? As they would do separately, right? No? Maybe it's not the right metrics. No, the best metaphor would be like this. So if you want to sell pair programming, you should better refer to the driver navigator metaphor. Or you should talk about mob programming, and all of a sudden, the pair programming becomes less radical to your manager, right? Say, we should do mob programming. Oh no, that's stupid. Okay, so what about pair programming? Oh yeah, maybe. You see? That's experience. That's what seniority is like this year. So in the toolbox, we have BDD, and I'm very happy to see Sebros there. I'm a big fan. So BDD is all about the conversations, and concrete examples, as Brian Maric would say, concrete examples are the hygiene of our work. And the Tres Amigos, putting together the people you need to deliver value early on. And the business analyst doesn't have to drink, It's not part of the Tres Amigos. So BDD is all about collaboration early and continuously. And you know why? You know what? These things, they are the same thing for DevOps. Collaboration early, continuously, just different people. So you get the thing. Everything that used to be a silo, we put them together and they collaborate early, continuously, etc. No, DevOps is not just about automation of the CI/CD. It's also about collaboration. It's mostly about that. And then you need the automated tests, and a lot of them. So these things are very nice when you start from scratch, but then obviously we spend our life in legacy. 80% of the time we spend at work is on legacy system usually. You agree with that? Yeah. The word is legacy. And the legacy, there are many definitions, but I like one that is very pragmatic, is you want to change the code and the code says no. Kind of thing like that. So I don't have the time to explore everything we could do there, but basically just keep in mind that legacy is not just the code, it's also the team and the people and the mindset that still produces the same kind of code. So don't forget to address one when you address the other. Very quickly, the DDD, I love it, and now you need it for the everything modular architectures like this and the concept of bounded context, and you also need it to do progressive legacy modernizations. Because, legacy, you should not redo everything as a big bang, right? Everybody knows that. Almost. Maybe not your manager. But anyway, so all these practices, now if you step back a little bit, I would say that they are in some way, that's the way I lived it, in a world where you have to go and you have to do Scrum, because you have to, then Craft is the complement that you need to reconstitute some poor man extreme programming. Yeah. So really, if you want the state of the art of how to do Craft, basically just look at extreme programming and do the diff with what you have. Basically, I would do that. Actually, it's already been the secret sauce for experienced teams that just try to do XP under the hood. There's another take on Craft that's also very interesting. It's just an adaptation to more modern technologies. Look, before the 2000s, where you would spend your time doing C++. C++ is like carving stones. Paf, a lot of energy. Slang, slang. The material is not helpful. and you have to manage your memory by hand, basically, the memory in the system memory by hand. And all of a sudden, boom, you get Smalltalk and Java who automate the memory management. Little change, but it's a big, big change. Actually, all of a sudden, your material becomes like clay. You can go fast, you can try things, and if it doesn't work, you change your mind and you do it differently, no problem. And unsurprisingly, the way you worked changed, and then to adapt to that, you know, waterfall made a lot of sense when you try to carve stone. You don't want to do it twice just because we change our mind or something like that. But if you are working with clay, it doesn't make sense to do a waterfall anyway. And so obviously the practices adapt to the technologies that progress as well. So you see, now, okay, I anticipate, but now I think then I could do the same thing with serverless as well on the next step, which brings this kind of change. All right, so yeah, we can take this definition, and there was something more to craft anyway. It was something more political. The idea of learning to say no. You know the joke? You are asked for estimates, and they become commitments. And usually you just say, but I have to. No, you don't have to. You should try and learn how to say no just diplomatically, or with some hypocrisy or something, but by the way, we had a session at the very early Socrates in Germany, and I asked the question for the session was, is hypocrisy part of the toolbox? And you know, the conclusion of the session was no, but diplomacy is. All right, so basically that's the idea of craft as just being professionals and professionalism. So you understand the way you want, but the usual metaphors that you can reuse a lot are the dentist. You go to the dentist, and the dentist says, "Oh, we need three appointments to do that." Would you brag? Would you haggle and say, "No, can you do it in two appointments only?" No, you never do that. Another metaphor is the butcher. I'm vegetarian, but still it's a butcher metaphor. There's a Chinese proverb saying that the butcher never wastes time sharpening the knife. You see? It applies to us as well. If you learning your IDE or whatever, it's part of it. Another metaphor is the kitchen, the cuisine. In the cuisine, the brigade, the cuisine, is cleaning everything every time, all the time. You clean the dish and immediately you clean up everything. Otherwise, at the end, you're cooked. We can say in French as well, on est cuit à la fin. Voilà. So it doesn't work well at the end. The last metaphor would be anything with safety. Yeah, safety takes a lot of time and it slows us down, but it's worth it, obviously. So we need these ideas because we need to convince a lot of people, and that's part of professionalism. We have to claim that we are the professionals and we know better what's best for the system and the company. So yeah, basically we could consider that hygiene and safety would be similar to tests and refactors, and maybe concrete examples as well. All right, so that was a lot of things. But you know that we live in an industry that is an industry of fast fashion. Yeah, really it is. See all the technology changing, and I'm not even talking about JS. Shall we always relearn everything? That's the big question. And you know the answer? The answer is no. You don't have to relearn everything, not everything. Because if you step back from the practices that we've seen, the DD things, the legacy stuff, all these things, if you step back from them, they have a lot of things in common that are evergreen, meaning they'll always be effective in decades. And these attitudes, the first one is that the system is not just the code. It's the code plus the people taking care of the code. So you're part of the system, like a cyborg thing. The code and the people. You are part of the equation. So we say things like socio-technical architecture and all these things. So that's the focus. So be explicit about that. That's an attitude that changes everything. The consequences there are there. And another attitude is baby steps. Don't try to do big things, try small things. Another thing related, but in space, don't try to do big things big things that you can deploy, big things that you can manage, that you can own, try to make them micro size. And that's the full idea behind microservices or whatever, is keep things the size that fits into your head or that can be redone without much drama or funding or whatever. So this kind of idea. Yeah, it always, it will always end up badly, but at least you'll end up badly with smaller stuff. Another thing is taste for simplicity. You know, that's the total opposite as the culture of 2000, where you would be proud of being the most virtuous. Virtuosity was a virtue in 2000, and now it's not anymore. You notice that? Now we want the virtuosity to do the simplest thing. And we have to be proud about doing something simpler than others. And if you try to do that, you know that if your colleagues do something even simpler, they're better. It's that simple. An example of simplicity would be that, you know, you don't even have to comment there. You should just make it simply obvious. So naming things is important, and that's another attitude. It's an attitude that you can find in any profession, by the way. If you do photography, if you do music production, you name your tracks, you name everything. Being frugal is another attitude, otherwise you end up with that, and again, you're cooked. There are many attitudes. I don't want to enumerate all of them, but one of them is if something hurts, do it all the time. I call it the principle of the washing the dishes. If you wash the dishes early on, it's quite easy. If you wait, it becomes harder. And the more you do it faster, the easier it becomes, the more you can automate, and etc. You know, you remember a time where deploying was dangerous? I remember that. It was. And now some people came in with this idea that let's do it all the time. Yeah, and we came up with continuous delivery. But at the beginning, it was, oh my God, it made no sense. It's totally stupid. So now, if we step back and get these attitudes, so basically, how do you learn these attitudes? You learn this attitude by practicing the practices that typically are associated with craft, test-driven development, BDD, legacy remediation techniques, and all these things. But you end up with attitudes that can be made portable and that you can apply to new territories. And basically, I would say you are able to craft anything. You can craft all the things. Like infra as code, there's a code in it, so basically just craft as usual. But you could craft data products. That's a new word. And there's something different. You know, in data products, data are equally important to the code. You have to craft the code, obviously, but you also have to craft the data, whatever it means. So what does it mean, for instance? Does it mean something to test the data? Yes, it does. And indeed, you have everything you need. You have unit test framework for data. I know at least two. One is called Great Expectations, and another is DQ. And they have a lot of test assertions built in that you can reuse. And guess what? You could even learn things from that if you have to test big legacy when you need big golden masters and you want to test things maybe statistically a little bit. So there's a lot to be learned as well. But you see that you can get the same attitudes and try to extrapolate to new territories. And you still are effective even on fresh territories. That's nice. And last example would be if you need to learn in data science and machine learning solutions. At first glance, people would say, "Oh, it's something very new. We don't need all your old craft." No. But then, if you look at, for instance, Google, what they've done is they were some of the first to do big size ML, and they wrote this paper. And what's the language of this paper? It's all about technical debt, dependencies, how things evolve, cohesion, all these things, just using different words, but still using the interest rate and technical debt metaphor because they are familiar with it. And the thing is, try to read it. If you know craft, try to read this paper. You may not understand everything specific to ML, but you will understand the topic and the problematics because you are familiar with craft and you can recognize these are the very similar issues. So yeah, that's the benefit. So stepping back even more. So overall, if we focus on right now, craft, I think it did have it did have an industry impact. A lot of companies changed the way they were working. They started requesting the keywords on the resume if you want to join, these kind of things. So yeah, it had a change. And as a result, obviously, it had also a new set of abuses, because we are humans after all. And one of them was dogmatism. Craft says that you have to do like this, so you have to do like this. And some craft coaches are very guilty of that. So don't do that. You know, an example, for instance, in the typical motto of craft was, don't repeat yourself. No duplication, nowhere. But then if you dig a bit deeper and you're discovering bounded context and autonomy between teams, you realize that dry also means coupling, and you don't want that at scale. So you see that you have a piece of advice saying that no duplication, and another one they say duplication is fine. For every practice, you get an anti-practice as well. For every piece of advice, you get the anti-advice as well, and they are all valid in their own context. So that's a new attitude that you have to develop. There is no best practices anymore. So for instance, the solution here is no duplication in the small, but no coupling in the large is better. That's the short answer. But you see, everything is contextual, so there is no best practice anymore. You can't have such a thing as one best practice. So how to cure yourself from this temptation to look for the best practices, the one that always works? One way is to deliberately take, for instance, at lunchtime, you go with your colleagues and you take your favorite practice and you try to break it. When not to use it. It's all about finding the boundaries of the context where this practice makes a lot of sense for you and when it doesn't anymore. And actually, it has a name. This atelier, this workshop has a name. It's called the Catmatic session. Because it's the opposite of dogmatic, and cat is the opposite of dog, right? So yeah, naming is hard, right? All right, another abuse is elitism. Yeah, I know, elitism. We are all guilty of that. So the antidote would be to teach, to coach, to help, and to help everyone. It's not about privilege, or it's not about a few people that only a few people should master craft. No, it's for everyone. So welcome everyone and help everyone grow. It's really part of the craft attitude as well. Another abuse linked to the former one was toxic leaders. But this happens. And I've heard there has been some stories about toxic people in software craft communities. Not that much in Europe. I've heard some report in the US. But basically, you know the answer. The answer is very simple. Don't tolerate. And if you can't do anything, quit. Or if you can fire. But these kind of things. One last abuse I would mention, because this one is a bit more subtle, is I love craft, but still I find that the limit of craft is that we still see ourselves and our peers are executors of somebody else's ideas. It's somebody else doing the money, doing the business. And like, it's not for us. We are just supposed to execute well, professionally. And it's a bit restricting you, and it's okay if you're happy with that. I have no problem with that. Just don't restrict yourself. You definitely can have the ambition to be an entrepreneur yourself. Why not? So it's not you have to, but don't restrict yourself. So it's not don't stay forever in the mindset of a crafter. You can go beyond if you like. It's cool as well. There's nothing wrong with that. The last abuse, it's not really an abuse, but it's something pity anyway, is I see too many people in the craft community stuck in time in 2009 at the beginning of the thing, stuck with the exact same set of practices, TDD, BDD, and still at the level of the code, the line of code. The line of code is the only thing that matters. But if you look around, it's not true anymore. Now you need to do a lot of async messaging. You need to do a lot of inter-process communication. You need a lot of stuff, architecture basically, a lot of other stuff, ops, all these things. So yeah, don't stay stuck there. And because since 2009, a lot of things happen already, and there's been a lot of innovations. And especially, the more you know about craft, the more we are in danger of looking at new things and say, oh, I recognize there's something new. It's the old same thing again. And you dismiss. I don't have to focus on that. And that's very dangerous, because actually, most of them, actually, yeah, they are very similar to what you know. For instance, let's take an example of cloud. You know, initially, when I see cloud coming in, oh, it's just hosting, so I don't care. It's not for me. But the truth is now, some years later, cloud is no more about hosting. Especially managed cloud is a game changer. And it totally changes the way you do code. And my colleague, Laurent and Marwan, for instance, they've shown me that you can go at a pace, at a speed that's been unheard before. And really, it makes everything different. And I'm talking about serverless especially, which is not just functions, it's a new way of thinking. And yes, overall, it is still 80% the same old thing. Yes, really. But there's something new. And this 10% or 20% of new there can be enough to totally change the game. So don't miss that. So my call to action, basically, if there was one, was please, the more senior you are, don't dismiss novelties, even if they look like the old stuff, but actively dig to find out what's really novel in the new idea. And the really novel part is probably heretic as well, like stupid. And it's still something we need to spot. Imagine you were in the old days where automated memory management came in. If you had dismissed that, you would have lost everything that we have today. It changed everything eventually. And so serverless, for instance, I expect it to change our lives the similar way. Another example, if we take microservices, actually it's not that much about microservices, it's about the things in between. Basically, so concretely, it's event-driven architecture. And if you look at event-driven architecture naively, oh, it's just async messaging. Oh, that's all. Yeah, that's all. Actually, it's not that. There's something more. The big idea is that you are supposed to be able to extend your system without disturbing anything that was there before. The change has to be just on the new thing that you plug and unplug. And you know what? Special effects. Click, click. Special effects. This idea, actually, we are very familiar with it because we even have a name for it in the craft, in a typical craft name. We call it the open-close principle. We can extend or change without opening any box, just by plugging in things or unplugging things. Yeah? And so if you are thinking about teams there, that's really the key to your, not to end up with a distributed monolith, as Sebros would say. You want autonomy to do your stuff without disturbing anyone else. So OCP is absolutely fundamental to succeed in this kind of idea. And if you replace that with web components or modular micro frontends, all these things, you get the same idea. So yeah, actively dig what's really novel. You have to look for it. Another thing, you know, for instance, there was a thing like no code. No code is something that never worked, as far as I know, except that now I think it's mature. So you have to revisit your opinion on things. Yeah. And serverless is very close to no code, by the way, or low code. Another stupid thing would be mob programming. Oh, it makes no sense. A full team on one task. Wow, that's totally stupid. Wow. Another thing that would be completely stupid would be deliberately killing the production environment or staging environment. Yeah, but still, that's the state of the art. Maybe not for right now, but if you want to know more, I'd suggest you have a look at Charity Major and what she does. She's in the future already. She's ahead. But so you need to find people who are ahead of us, even if what they do right now looks like complete stupidity. Remember that progress actually goes through heresy. So we can provoke progress by doing dangerous things deliberately. No, maybe not. But try things. Remember that the line between innovation and stupidity is very thin. And we know after, usually. So right now, the hot things, of course, is everything LLM, and it's going to change everything again as well. We just don't know really how. But so now, I'd like to step back a little more again. And if we step back a little more again, if we look at all the practices, we get all the attitudes. And if we step back again, all these attitudes, they have one thing in common. They are the attitudes to deal with genuinely complex systems effectively. Complex, and by complex, I mean kinfin. I mean complex, meaning that you can't model. And so basically, all the things that we've seen before, they are useful to you. They are useful to learn, even if you were to quit software tomorrow and start entrepreneurship or parenting, because these are typically complex behaviors. And so it's a new, like, reprogramming your mind to a new operating system. And for instance, if you want to learn complexity, just try to do working on legacy systems, big legacy systems. It's genuine complexity as well, in the purest form. So that's one way to train yourself to how to deal with these complex systems, and that's that's the skill set of right now. Complexity thinking is the thing. So the reference there, one of the references is kinfin by Dave Snowden. And so basically what I mean is this complex quadrant where you have to do things in a very different way than the complicated stuff. You know, I was trained as an engineer, a strict one. And so I was very good at doing complicated. So over 20-something years, I had to reprogram myself to deal with complex systems. And basically, that's why TDD, test-driven development, etc., actually taught me, after all. And I'm very sure that it will be useful even if I completely quit technology. And recognize the attitudes. These are the exact same toolbox of dealing with complexity. What didn't work but could work now? No code? And it's very incredible that Eric Evans knew that 20 years ago, because it's precisely the subtitle of the book. How did he know? Complexity thinking was hardly a topic, or maybe it was, and I wasn't there. So if we want to expand on this toolbox, the toolbox will expand far beyond craft, wordle mapping, residuality theory, from Barry O'Reilly, all these things. So now it's time for recap. And if you let me recap craft, I would say that craft was something in history, just like Dada was something in the history of art. If you go to the Pompidou Museum, you probably won't be shocked by Dada. But remember that at the time of Dada, it was shocking. That's the same for craft. It came at a time where we were doing the exact opposite, and it was supposed to shock and to change things. So that's nice to put things in context. So if you ask me, will craft die? Actually, I don't care. It's done. It's achieved its purpose already. It's changed things. It was something necessary in the context at the time. And it's still necessary in many contexts right now. Because future is not evenly distributed, you know. So the conclusion is, of course, it's still worth learning all these things, among other things, but don't get stuck in 2009. There's more than TDD, BDD, and all these things. And then, don't look ahead, just expect to be surprised by genuine novelty, and actually dig this novelty. You know, we know the end of the story. At the end, everybody dies. You know, it's like in Greek tragedies. At the end, craft, and the more successful it becomes, craft will end up meaning different things to different people, and we have to retire the world. I know that for sure. It's just a matter of when. But so the question for me now, the interesting questions for me and for you, I hope, is what we will focus on after we no longer focus on craft? What's going to be the next big thing? And I guess that's actually the real meaning of a conference just like this one. NewCrafts is all about how together we create the future by looking to new stuff. Are you excited to join this quest? Hey! Thank you very much. Do we have time for questions? I wasn't there before 1999, so don't ask me before that. Yeah. Maybe no question, just relax before Kenbeck. Yeah.
You didn't talk about AI.
Not much. No, because I think it's really a big thing. It's going to change a lot of things, definitely. We still don't know how, but still start using it. You have to start using it. Don't dismiss that. I'm already using some of it, but not enough. And there are some patterns how to integrate some Llama system to some LLM within your own DB of facts. Typically, is a pattern that we all have to learn straight away. Creating your own, the reference architecture of how to integrate ChatGPT with your own DB is one that you have to learn. Just quit this session and go learn it. That's that's useful like that. Yeah. On this topic, when I give trainings, the exercise, some exercise tries to solve the exercise using ChatGPT. And in the last 2 sessions, they were able to complete the exercise just with GPT. So it's kind of humiliating, if you like, or promising, if you prefer. No other question? You have the right to go to the bathroom and drink something. Thank you very much.